You are a steward, as you are right now. Last week we heard from Jim and Carla Urisic the ways in which retirement has caused them to rethink or to think more intentionally about the ways that they spend their time. And this week in our I Am a Steward series, we're going to visit with Bill and Suzanne Larko. And I love the way in which they talk about stewardship. I love the way in which they talk so faithfully, so trustingly about the way in which they've stewarded their finances, especially. So often you can hear it from our mouths, you know what to expect. But as you listen and as you hear Bill and Suzanne's story, I hope that you see two people who have really wrestled with, hey, what does this mean for me? If this is true about what stewardship is, then how is it going to change and affect the way that I live, that I give, that I spend my time and my money? And so as you hear that, I hope you hear someone that you can relate to, that's wrestled with it, who knows the difficulty of it. But I hope you see in them too someone who truly is trying to live out what God wants them to do, but not just that. Someone who's really been blessed by it too. That as they've went on this journey, as you'll hear them call it, that they actually have been blessed by God in the ways in which they've dealt with and practiced stewardship. That it's not just I do it now because I'm supposed to, but that God actually has been at work in them and through them as they experience this journey of stewardship. So without further ado, I'm going to get out of the way and let them tell their story about how they are stewards.
I'm Bill, and this is Suzanne Larko, and we are stewards.
Stewardship is taking the gifts that God has provided us, has given us, and finding a way to use those gifts to glorify God.
I feel like everything is His, and I feel like He asks for a 10% tithe, and so all of it is His. He only asks for 10% of it back, and so 90% of it He allows us to keep. And so I feel like being a good steward of what He has provided us, and it is what we have to do. That's what we're called to do.
My original understanding of stewardship was tithing. Just 10%. I understood that it's written in the Bible, 10% you're to tithe to your church. Um, and before I started really understanding what stewardship was above and beyond that, we were givers, but we weren't tithers. And I had only ever focused on the money portion of it. Now that I understand stewardship is everything that we have has been given to us from God, and we need to use that to glorify God. Even something as simple as before we started tithing, we started like looking in our pantry because we have our food pantry at church, and we might have a few extra boxes of noodles or like a surplus of stuff that maybe we're not even going to use, that may even end up expiring and we throw away. And I was thinking, well, we're not really being good stewards of that at all. When I get to heaven, I don't want God to say, hey, I gave you all of this and you kept it all to yourself. You did nothing with what I gave you except you hoarded it all. So, we started giving to the food pantry. Then we started, figuring out different things that go on at church, different ways for us to get involved, and stewarded our time and our talents as far as being on the stewardship or on the finance board, and then the stewardship committee. And then we worked our way up to a tithe.
I would say it's a journey. I would say my journey started at home. I was raised Catholic, and I saw that my parents always gave every Sunday, and we went to church every Sunday. But my parents weren't active in our church. We went every Sunday, but they weren't active, and I know that they gave, and I just have no idea how much. Tithing was never talked about. I think it was what started as I was an adult was about, I'm going to give to the church, but it wasn't first fruits. And so that's one of the things that really turned us and our relationship with the church to tithing. and to build up the tithing was a first fruits campaign that St. Luke ran. It was Discipleship 101 and talking about time, talents, and treasures, and talking about how we have to build towards this, that it's the 10%, the tithe, or whatever that percentage is first, and then we budget everything else. That isn't how I was brought up, and that isn't how our marriage really started either. But as we started our journey and said, okay, so maybe we're at 5%, and then maybe we're at 6% and 7%, it continues to be a journey until we could reach a tithe of 10%. And then we also, in conjunction with that, I was on the finance board, like you'd said. I'm on BLL now. Alder Guild we've done. It's just about, it's not just all about money. It's about making sure that we use our time as well. And that's what I would say to other folks. It's a journey.
It was also difficult to give up control because before we started down our stewardship journey, we relied on ourselves. We relied on ourselves to, where were we putting our money? Where were we putting our time? We were all doing it all for the benefit of us. And then once we started, the pot's only this big, and we were relying on that pot through our whole marriage. Then, our time, our treasures, everything we're taking from a smaller pot, and it makes you nervous. But we had to really rely on Jesus to get us through that. And once we started it, then we know no other way now. It's been a journey, a slow journey. It didn't happen overnight, but I feel very comfortable now with, maybe something's coming up that's making us a little nervous, and I don't even look at it that way anymore. I look at it that, well, God will take care of it for us, and He does. I think it changes the way we look at the world and the way we look at life. We're very different people now than we were then. I mean, I'm not saying that we're great. I'm just saying we're very different because we view the world in a different way, and it's made us walk closer with God as well. So we do our readings, we do our Bible studies here at home, and it's made me read the Bible every day. So I've been through the Bible front to back 5 times now. Wow. Because it made me want to start learning more. I'm like, well, okay, so I need to be a good steward. If everything comes from God, what am I doing here? So what does He expect of me? And there's one place you can find that, and it's in the Bible. And then you start relating everything to your life. Old Testament's a little more difficult to relate to your life, but it just changes the way you live your life.
First, it was financial because we thought, okay, so we're going to make sure that it's the tithe first, and then the budget around that. And then when we do the numbers, and we would say, well, that's going to be challenging, and that's going to be a couple of less times out to eat, and that was a challenge. And we've been so blessed that again you figure how to do without those extra times out. And the other challenge would be time. With my job and my travel, I mean, I may be working 50, 60 hours a week, and then finding time to be on a committee and serve the church in different capacities, and like the house build and things like that. I mean, it's not easy, but if it's something worthwhile, then you make sure that you prioritize and make it happen. I think also about the parable of talents a lot, and I think about how when we started tithing and on our journey, I think that we have been good stewards, and I hope that Jesus feels the same way, because I think every year we are being blessed with more, because He will give us more to be stewards of, because we've been faithful for what He provided at the beginning. And on this journey, every year we have more and more to be stewards of. I steward because I want to be a great example for our kids. I think that if more folks did that, this world can be a much better place. If we teach our children, stewardship is not an option, because it's not ours. I would say to try to find that extra little bit of time in your week that you can help someone else, whether that's at St. Luke or whether that's just bringing them closer to Jesus outside of St. Luke. That doesn't matter. I would challenge that. I think we all have an extra 0.5% or 1% in our budget. And then next year, I think we could find it again because we have it. It's there. It's about prioritizing. And I think we all can do it. And it hurts a little bit, and sometimes it's a little bit painful, but the reward is much, it's worth the risk.
I would say look for your talent. Everyone, God has given everyone their own individual talent. Find it. What do you like to do? What are you good at doing? And then start looking into the church and seeing where that fits, because there's a need for, just get involved in something and use your talent that God has given you. And then I would back that up by saying, rely on God. Rely on God. Trust in Him, and don't trust in your own comfortability, because maybe you're a little uncomfortable to get involved in a committee or a club or something, and trust that God will put you where you belong.
We've been blessed, tremendously blessed.
And we can't keep it to ourselves. I am Suzanne Larko, and I am a steward.
I am Bill Larko, and I am a steward.